Well, white smoke is coming out of the chimney. We have resolution in the Jauan Jennings contract saga. He has indeed reached a new deal with the 49ers, and it's not a big one. It's added incentives, $3 million in added incentives to Jauan Jennings' 2025 contract, allows him to maintain his path to free agency in 2026, which is important to Jauan Jennings. It's something he wasn't willing to give up unless the 49ers paid up big, and it was clear that they weren't going to pay up big. Jennings now increases his 2025 earning power from 7.5 million to 10.5 million. As you can see here, the news coming in from Adam Schefter. 49ers and Jauan Jennings reached an agreement on a deal that will add $3 million in playtime incentives to the wide receivers contract per Drew and Jason Rosenhaus, who are the agents for Jauan. So now instead of earning $7.5 million this season, Jennings can earn up to $10.5 million. Guys, it was always going to be a threading of the needle. On one side, you have Jauan Jennings outperforming the contract that he signed last year. But on the other side, you had the 49ers saying, you just signed that contract last year. On one side, you had Jauan Jennings saying, well, other guys are being paid ahead of their lame duck seasons. This is my lame duck season, and I put up 975 receiving yards last year, so I want some more money. And on the other side, you had the 49ers saying, well, we just spent on Brandon Ayuk $30 million annually a calendar year ago, and it's not in our salary cap budget to spend again at that wide receiver position. I mean, both sides were right, but the 49ers had more leverage because Jennings was already under contract as a 28-year-old wide receiver. So the way that you keep the locker room happy, keep Jauan Jennings happy because he's done so much for you, he embodies so much of what you are as an organization. The way that you thread that needle is through incentives. From the very start, we said that incentives would be the likely resolution to this. There's a lot of people saying, oh, I knew this was coming. No, you didn't. I saw so many people tweeting, oh, the 49ers, they're not going to back down. They're not going to do anything. They're not going to change his deal at all. It's not the right year to do it. Those same people are going out saying, oh, yeah, this was obvious. I mean, it was obvious to those of us who study contracts, but I don't think that social media was expecting this today. I was hinting at it a little bit earlier this week that something was going to happen with the 49ers and Jauan Jennings, and something has indeed happened. It's obviously favorable to the 49ers salary cap situation. The most extra money they will take on in this situation against the cap is going to be $3 million, because it is $3 million in added playtime incentives. We're going to have to wait to see what exactly those incentives are. He met contract escalators last year that increased the value, potential earning power of his deal in 2025 to that $7.5 million figure. And now his earning power moves from 7.5 million to 10.5 million. Jennings is going to be 29 years old next year. He wants to maintain his ability to cash out in actual free agency. Free agency is the golden goose in this situation, right? Last year, Jauan Jennings signed a 2-year deal because he had been number 3 at the highest for the 49ers. And he didn't have the contractual leverage asking power for a big wide receiver deal. So he signed a 2-year deal worth what, about $6 or $7 million annually. He gave up 2 years of team control to be able to get some guaranteed money. That made sense at the time for Jauan Jennings. That made sense entering 2024. The 49ers, Brandon Ayuk was their ex-wide receiver. Brandon Ayuk was the guy who ended up getting paid $30 million annually. He got the mega deal. Jauan Jennings got the wide receiver 3 deal. 49ers got the bargain last year because Jennings had yet to eclipse 500 receiving yards in one season. Fast forward, though, through 2024, Jennings outplayed Ayuk, who tore his ACL following a ton of contract drama. Jennings had 975 receiving yards. He met all of his contract escalators, would have had 1,000 receiving yards if not for a very, very bad situation officiating wise in the season finale. He should not have gotten ejected out of that game, but it happened after the shoving match or whatever the hell it was with Byron Murphy. But Jauan Jennings put up a sterling statistical season. So he said entering 2025, well, hey, I want some acknowledgement of what I did last year. I damn near put up 1,000 receiving yards. Like, you could understand this from Jauan Jennings' perspective, and then you could understand it from the 49ers' perspective. I mean, the situation changed, which made this a really, really tough deal. When Jennings signed the deal, Brandon Ayuk was healthy. Brandon Ayuk was on his way to making $30 million a year. Now, when Jennings sat down looking at the final year of this contract, wanting to support himself and his family for the rest of his life, I mean, that's what you're trying to do with this NFL money. He said, wait, deal isn't fair anymore. Teams back away from contracts all the time with non-guaranteed money. And now we're seeing players try to exert whatever leverage they have. I think that this, now that we look at this in the big picture over the course of the past 6-7 weeks, ever since Jauan Jennings said that he wanted an amended contract, this was a good faith maneuver by both sides. Jennings showed up and he practiced for a week. That was unlike Brandon Ayuk last year. Yes, he had the calf injury. Yes, there was some question about, okay, well, does he need a new contract to heal the calf injury or not? But he practiced at the start of camp, and he practiced on Monday and today before news of this deal came out. And Kyle Shanahan sat down with Jauan at the start of training camp and said, hey, the best way forward, the best way to, you're not in a great situation leverage-wise. I don't know how deep into the business Kyle Shanahan went, the business talk Kyle Shanahan went with Jauan Jennings, but it was very apparent, and I'm sure Jennings had competent representation with Drew Rosenhaus, but it was clear that he wasn't in a great position leverage-wise. But the best way to see some sort of reward, to see some sort of return on his demand for more money would be to play this as a good sport, to show up, to practice when he was healthy. And he did that at the start of camp. He hurt his calf. We don't know exactly when absences were due to the calf or when they were due to the contract, but Kyle Shanahan was right. Jennings was able to get a little bit extra in the incentives, and that's all that you could have ever expected in this situation. He was able to get a little bit extra after practicing during this training camp. And now he's healthy. He's ready to be one of the 49ers' top 2 receivers in week 1, and we can move this into regular season mode. I don't think anybody won. I don't think anybody lost this. I think this was just business 101. Incentives were going to be the way to thread the needle. It was never going to be a large amount. Resolution, though, was needed so the 49ers could enter this season with a clean, healthy slate. They get that resolution by finding this contract agreement with Jauan Jennings. If you take a look at what it was supposed to be this year versus what it's going to be, 2025, the 49ers add an option bonus of $5.6 million due to Jauan Jennings on September 1st, a couple days ago, was guaranteed for this season. So he was on the roster. They've got to distribute that option bonus of $5.6 million. It became larger because he hit a lot of the escalator numbers in 2024. So that option bonus hits. The base salary is a veteran minimum, $1.17 million. That's going to hit on a weekly basis over the course of the season. So you add $1.17 million to $5.6 million. That's going to come up to about $6.8 million. And then you've got the per game roster bonus and the workout bonus money, which adds up to $7.5 million. That's where Jennings was before they reached this added incentive package. So I added everything up to $7.5 million. You tack on another 3, it's going to be $10.5 million. Playtime incentives, Mike, if you see any of the details regarding the playtime incentives, let me know. But I'm sure that Jauan Jennings and Drew Rosenhaus and his camp negotiated to make them reasonably attainable. Maybe he is able to net 1.5 million extra, 2 million extra. I mean, even if we say this is a small adjustment, this is still a significant amount of money, right? It's just, there's a chance to earn 3 million more in 2025. But for the working everyday person, that's a huge sum of money. So I think that sometimes we act like this is monopoly money when we're talking about these contracts, because some of them are downright massive, right? Some of them are over 50 million per year. You just saw Micah Parsons at 47 million per year. So I get it. It dwarfs the numbers that we're dealing with here. But to somebody like Jauan, who hasn't had a chance to be a wide receiver one or even a wide receiver two on the NFL pay scale yet, I do think that this is significant, and it does really, really represent the spirit of compromise. Adam Schefter has added that Jennings rejected an offer on a multi-year contract. What did I tell you? The 49ers wanted more team control, and they weren't willing to pay enough for it, which makes sense. I get it if you're the 49ers. Jennings is 28 years old, so he's getting toward the older end for a receiver that you'd really want to pay a lot of money. You already paid Brandon Ayuk last year. In 2024, the 49ers were able to get a multi-year deal at a cheap rate with Jauan Jennings. That wasn't going to be the case anymore in 2025. He outplayed that potential contract. So the 49ers tried to get him roped in for longer. Jauan Jennings said, no, I'd rather wait it out till free agency. Smart decision probably on Jauan's part, on Drew Rosenhaus's part. But the 49ers also had him under contract for this season. So the way that you reward him in a way that's acceptable, that preserves his free agency, is through added incentives that are attainable. And we'll see exactly what those incentives are. But I think it's fair to surmise that they'll be attainable for the 2025 season. So we knew this was coming, and it is indeed here. And it's good for the vibes for the 49ers as they enter 2025. They've got Seattle and a defense. The Seahawks defense they believe they can be the best unit in the league this year. Like, they literally think that. Seattle, Jaron Reed, Seahawks defensive lineman, came out at the start of training camp and said, I think we could be the number one defense in the NFL. And yes, that is a very ambitious statement from Jaron Reed, but it is not completely preposterous. The Seahawks, over the final 8 weeks of last year after the bye, under their new head coach, Mike McDonald, were the number 6 defense in football. Number 6 against the pass, number 6 against the run. They've got a really good secondary. This is going to be a big test for the 49ers offense. You want Jauan Jennings in place, which the 49ers have already had since Monday at practice. You want him in place, and you have to be ready to go to battle with a Seahawks team that I think is going to mean business defensively. Mike McDonald is a really good play caller. Devin Witherspoon is a really good corner. Julian Love is a good safety. I don't know what the Seahawks are going to do with Nicky Emanwuri, the rookie out of South Carolina, but there's a good chance that he's going to be a third safety and a rover, and the 49ers don't have tape on him yet, so he could be all over the field creating havoc with a good play caller. I mean, this is going to be a fight. It's going to be a real fight on Sunday, and you know who you want to bring with you to a fight? Jauan Jennings. You don't want to go into a fight without Jauan. Like, this is fan bases everywhere that he has gone, from the University of Tennessee before in high school over in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, but then to the University of Tennessee, to the 49ers. Everyone has loved Jauan Jennings on their football team. He shows up for big games. He delivers in knife fights, right? Some of these games, I think this is going to be a knife fight on Sunday. This is going to be one where you're going to have to adapt as the game happens, because you don't have 5 games of film on Seattle's defense. They don't have 5 games of film on the 49ers. There are going to be new tendencies that both teams probably are going to be experimenting with. So it's probably going to get a little ugly at times. The season opener is always unpredictable in that way. And for those types of games, you want those players who are tough as nails, who can block, who are good receivers, who can run good routes, who can make tough contested catches over the middle of the field, and who have that attitude that can knock an opponent's emotional stability a little off kilter, if you will. Jauan Jennings fits all of those descriptors for the 49ers, which is why, even with all the leverage that they had, they could have just said, Jauan, sorry, we can't do anything with your contract, and you have to play because you're going to be a free agent next offseason. The 49ers could have just folded their arms and said, no, we dare you to sit out. You're hurting yourself more than you're hurting us. And I think, with Kendrick Bourne coming in and having been offered a contract with Marquez Valdez-Scantling now on the team. I mean, the 49ers could have somewhat insulated themselves to really play hardball, and they have. But they would have been, yes, they would have been worse without Jauan Jennings. But I think they could have survived, especially with Kittle, with Christian McCaffrey. But they said no. Like, you culturally, you do have to reward. You do have to play some reasonable financial Tetris with the guys who have served you well. And I think Jauan Jennings definitely fits into that category. So, new deal for Jauan Jennings. It is not a major one. The 49ers can definitely fit this into their crowded cap situation. This is for Jauan, an extra $3 million this year in playtime incentive earning ability. He can now earn up to $10.5 million this year. He had ranked around number 40 amongst wide receivers in average per year. He still actually is at around that spot because incentive money doesn't count in APY. But if these are reasonably earned incentives, you could probably move Jauan Jennings up into number 25 to number 30 in the receiver APY pecking order, functionally, if you included the incentives in receiver APY. Go back and watch the videos that we made about 6 weeks ago. I talked about an incentive-based solution for Jauan Jennings. We got all that stuff there. This is definitely the reasonable compromise for the 49ers. You got any more, Mike? But open this up to some questions as we talk. Obviously, big news since this is something that we've been living through, I feel, on a daily basis over the course of training camp. And the 49ers have resolution. Jauan Jennings has resolution. I don't think either side was in the wrong at really any point this offseason. They were just both in a tough spot. The 49ers have their cost structure. 49ers have their setup where they have paid certain players. And, we could look at this. This is something that I should probably visualize for you up on the screen. But the 49ers have this setup with every player highlighted in yellow being an A-list core player. Those are the tent poles for the 49ers. They cleaned house in many, many position rooms this offseason, but they made sure to maintain some load-bearing walls, some foundational pillars on this football team. And over the past 2 off seasons, they have paid the majority of these guys. They're still top 5 in cash spend in 2025. So Brock Purdy, 2025 mega deal. Christian McCaffrey, 2024 mega deal. Kyle Juszczyk, I know the fullback scale is lower, but they re-signed him in 2025. George Kittle, 2025 mega deal. Trent Williams, 2024 mega deal. Nick Bosa, 2023 mega deal. Fred Warner, 2025 mega deal. Deommodore Lenoir, 2024 mega deal. So you could see what the 49ers are doing here financially, and then you could add Brandon Ayuk into that mix, 2024 mega deal in the receiver room. Every single position group has seen a star A-list player paid in either 2024 or 2025, with the exception of defensive line where Nick Bosa got paid in 2023. So the past 2 seasons have seen the 49ers make massive financial expenditures on star players. Jauan Jennings would have taken a multi-year deal if the 49ers paid him enough, obviously, but they didn't have enough money under the salary cap, not because they're cheap, but under the salary cap. There's a limit here to commit more to a wide receiver position that already saw that money go to Brandon Ayuk. So he's not an A-lister, Jauan, but he's really important. That's the rock in the hard place that we're talking about. That's the needle that the 49ers had to thread. How did they thread it? Incentives, $7.5 million to $10.5 million in earning power increase for Jauan Jennings. This is a good resolution for both sides. Acceptable for both sides. Obviously acceptable for both sides since Jauan signed the contract. It was probably the best that he was going to get, given the fact that the 49ers held the power in this situation. If Jennings balls out, this will be his last dance with the 49ers. Probably, but there's also a scenario in which he's so good And he did a lot of awesome stuff last year that the 49ers give him a multi-year deal after this year. Is it likely? I don't think so. But you know who else is in a similar boat as Jauan Jennings is Colton McKivitz. We haven't heard as much, but Kyle Shanahan actually talked about Colton today in his press conference before practice. Both of these guys were drafted in the late rounds of 2020. Colton McKivitz in the 5th round, Jauan Jennings in the 7th round. Both of these guys were cut early in their careers. Colton McKivitz ahead of the 2021 season. Jauan Jennings, his rookie season, was cut. Both re-signed to the practice squad. Both re-signed with the 49ers for 2-year deals in 2024, last offseason. And both are now entering the lame duck years of those contracts. Both Jauan Jennings and Colton McKivitz have outperformed their current contracts. Jauan, obviously, last year with 975 receiving yards. Colton making what, $4 million a year, maybe $4.5 million a year. Played as an above-average right tackle last year. The tape and the data doesn't lie on Colton McKivitz. As much as fans want to hate on him, he improved a lot. He's obviously outplayed his deal. Both guys deserving of more money. Both guys, though, not quite A-list players. Both at positions where the 49ers spent huge amounts of money in 2024. Trent Williams got a massive extension in 24 right after Brandon Ayuk. Those are line and receiver. Those are the two positions we're talking about here with McKivitz and Jennings. So my next question is how do the 49ers thread this needle with Colton McKivitz? I think similar to Jauan Jennings, they probably want to see how this season plays out before committing big time money to either of those two guys. Because Colton's backup made $15 million annually on his new contract with the Chiefs. That's Jalen Moore. So Colton McKivitz probably going to go for $20 million or more if he continues improving this year. If Colton McKivitz shows up to be an 80th percentile tackle this year instead of just a 56th percentile tackle, if he's truly in some of the upper reaches of the league after running the hills of San Francisco over on Telegraph Hill, Kearney Street, Vallejo Street, we did a video from there. If Colton McKivitz really parlays that into more success this year for the 49ers, they can truly think about committing to this guy as a tackle of the future, knowing that Trent Williams is not going to play forever. But I think the 49ers want to see that before they make that kind of decision moving forward. I think they want to see where they are with receiver. It's so complicated there with Brandon Ayuk still on PUP. They want to see where they're at with the receiver. They want to see if Jauan Jennings can deliver another season of the level of play that he's at right now, like 975 yards now under different circumstances. If he can, maybe they'll think about it. Maybe they'll think about giving him bigger money entering his age 29 year. But that's neither here nor there at this moment. At this moment, the way to thread the needle was through the incentives, and that's what the 49ers were able to give Jauan Jennings. All right, I want to see some more good questions. Colton will get that bag where he goes. Yep, Colton. There is a high demand for competent offensive linemen in the league right now. A very, very high demand. You guys have any questions about this Jauan Jennings situation? I know it's rather straightforward. This is from Matt Mayoko. A source confirms that Jauan Jennings can collect $3 million in playtime incentives this season on the final year of his contract. Per his contract, he received a $3.275 million advance on his scheduled $6.65 million salary in February. His original deal included $850,000 in per game roster bonuses. That's all stuff that we already knew as far as the original numbers. But the 49ers can pump this up now to $10.5 million total with the extra incentives for Jauan Jennings. And now we'll see if something has worked out with Colton McKivitz next. Will Bosa net more than Parsons next year? Depends on the type of year that Nick Bosa puts up. This is all performance dependent, but there's a window for renegotiation with Nick Bosa next offseason. That's how the contract was built. So in effect, this is a contract year for Nick Bosa. The NFL, these contracts are very, very team friendly. Even the biggest deals for somebody like Nick Bosa, they got 6 years of team control out of that. the money on the back end is not guaranteed. That's when these star players come back and say, hey, I want to renegotiate. Look at Josh Allen. He had what, 3 or 4 years left on his contract? Let's renegotiate. Fred Warner this offseason, still had 2 years left on his deal. 49ers and Warner got ahead of it. It makes sense to re-sign these guys early if they're superstars and you know they're going to be there for you, if they're very dependable players, because you can lower your near-term salary cap hit. You can escalate the costs later on, but you're okay with escalating costs later on because the salary cap is consistently rising. It rises along with NFL revenues. So the 49ers were okay with that with Fred Warner. The Bills were okay with that with Josh Allen. I think it's sound cap strategy. Get ahead of some of these costs. And I think the 49ers are going to have a decision to make if Nick Bosa has an excellent 2025. And it may not be much of a decision if he has an excellent 2025. Most of the power, if not all the power, might be in Nick Bosa's court because of how important of a position he plays. What are we arguing about regarding Brandon Ayuk in the comment section? I see some arguments, but he has said I rock with Brock. The Brock star, who has a good rapport with Jauan Jennings, by the way. I am ready for more questions from you guys. Somebody saying that Brandon Ayuk sucks. Brandon Ayuk was a really good player. Unfortunately, I don't think he handled the contract situation gracefully in 2024, and then he got hurt. And now he has to prove himself again. That's important for Brandon Ayuk. It's just something that we have to look out for, though. Mike asked me, did the 49ers wait for Jennings to be healthy to give him the incentive increase deal? Possibly. We know that we're going to talk to Jauan Jennings at some point later this week, maybe tomorrow, maybe Friday, and maybe we'll get a little bit more to that side of the story. But again, the 49ers and 49ers and Jauan Jennings have reached agreement on a new contract, just the way that we thought it would happen. Incentives added from $7.5 million to $10.5 million. Both sides win. The 49ers had the leverage here, which is to be expected. He was under contract. It was an unusual situation in that Jennings had very quickly outgrown the deal that he was given last year due to a surprise set of circumstances. So what do you do when something surprises you? You act flexibly. The 49ers couldn't act all that flexibly because of the limited money they have under the salary cap, but they still acted flexibly. Incentives were the way to make it work. Add on to the incentives. Jauan can now make up to $3 million more in 2025. That always made sense from the beginning. It makes extra sense now. Now you hope that his calf stays healthy, and he's got a big game against Seattle on Sunday. The Seahawks are already talking as if they can be the best defense in football. I think that might be a little bit ambitious, but again, I mentioned they finished last season over the final 6 games as the number 6 unit in the NFL. They've got Mike McDonald in there as a second year. They've got Reek Woolen at corner. They've got Devin Witherspoon, a star at the other cornerback position. They've got a really good safety in Julian Love. They got a new DB picked early on in the second round, and Nick Manworry. You need Jauan Jennings for this football game. It's a good thing that he's back out at practice for the 49ers. It's a good thing that he's got his money now for San Francisco. Thumbs up on all fronts. 49ers getting business done. Think about all the business that San Francisco handled this offseason. Purdy, Fred Warner, George Kittle, 11-player draft class. They cleaned house. Jauan Jennings is not a player that you clean out of the house. Jauan Jennings is somebody you want to keep around. Problem is they were a little handcuffed. They were a little constrained in how they could do it and keep him happy. This ends up being the compromise that needed to happen. This is resolution in a way that makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. It's good stuff. Everybody, thanks for watching. Jauan Jennings and the 49ers have reached a new deal. The offseason saga is now behind us. Take care, guys. Good night.